we will do the lesson If I Were You by Douglas James. Now let's start with the play. So, If I Were You is an interesting play that has mystery, suspense, surprise, and humor. It is a story in which an intruder intends to kill Gerard and impersonate him to escape the law, but the tables are turned on him as he is trapped due to Gerard's presence of mind, which can help us come out of trickiest of situations. Now, let's talk about the author. Author James W. Jim Douglas, born in 1937, is an American author, activist, and Christian theologian. He is a graduate of Santa Clara University. He and his wife Shelley Douglas founded a Ground Zero Center for Nonviolent Action in Washington. And the Douglases received the Passam in Terrace Award in 1997. Now let's talk about the title. If I Were You is a very appropriate title. It refers to the wishful thinking of the intruder who wants to assume Gerard's identity in order to escape the law. His idea of eluding the police by living on a borrowed identity remains unfulfilled as he is trapped by Gerard and outwitted before he assumes his life. His dream to impersonate Gerard is quashed, and the If I Were You looms forever with no hopes of becoming a concrete reality. The title therefore hints at the basic idea of the story and is therefore very apt. Now let's discuss the theme. The theme of the play emphasizes the significance of intelligence, the presence of mind, and a cool head in situations of crisis. Panic complicates matters, but cool temperament can help one wriggle out of the tight corners with ease. Now, criminals who mastermind most deceitful crimes can also be outwitted because they have a fear of getting detected and caught by the law. So, hence, a tactful planning and handling of a situation can trap even the so-called smart criminals. Now, let's go to the setting. Now, the setting of the play is a room in the cottage of a playwright, Vincent Charles Gerard, in the wilds of Essex. The cottage is isolated and quite suitable as a writing retreat for a playwright who is something of a mystery man, as he is not very social and never meets the tradesman. So it is also quite suitable as a hideout for a criminal on the run, as it is isolated. Now, let's go through the message of the play. The play gives you the message that overconfidence can lead to disastrous results. One should never consider oneself to be smarter than the opponent. The intruder makes the serious error of thinking that Gerard is no match for him, and therefore he lets down his guard. The play conveys the message that intelligence, presence of mind, and keeping cool head can help us overcome the gravest of problems that we may encounter. Now, Gerard retains his cool and turns the situation to his advantage and cleverly tricks the intruder and locks him up in the cupboard before calling the police. Now, let's talk about humor. Though the play deals with a criminal and a playwright threatened by him, there is a thread of humor that runs through the play. The humor is neither boisterous nor unnatural, and it is refined and subtle. Now, Gerard's cool-headedness and presence of mind make him come out with such witty and sarcastic remarks that annoy the intruder and amuse the audience. When the intruder asks him to talk about himself, rather than panicking, he says he is happy to have a sympathetic audience. When the intruder says he intends to live in his cottage, Gerard, rather than being shocked, says, "You are not particularly decorative." Now, such humor runs throughout the play and making it not just a gripping drama but also an entertaining one for the readers. Now, let's talk about the characters, starting with Gerard. Gerard, the protagonist of If I Were You, is portrayed as a man of many virtues. He is endowed with a brilliant wit, a sharp mind, smart thinking, and a sense of humor. All these qualities combined with his ability to keep a cool head enable him to handle even a life-threatening situation very successfully and easily. Now, Gerard is associated with the theatre. He is a playwright. He also acts in and provides props for plays. He is not very social, lives in a lonely cottage, as we discussed before also, in the wilds of Essex, gives his orders on the phone, and never meets the tradesmen. This is probably because he likes his solitude while writing. A refined and a cultured man, Gerard keeps his cool even in the most difficult situations. The sight of an intruder doesn't ruffle him, and he talks to him courteously and pleasantly. And his sense of humor irritates the intruder many times. He calls the situation melodramatic and calls himself a sympathetic audience. And even when he is confronted with a life-threatening situation, Gerard retains his presence of mind and lays a trap for the intruder very cleverly. He convinces the intruder that he too is a criminal on the run, and they both can escape together. Now, everything comes so naturally and spontaneously to him that the intruder walks into his trap unsuspectingly. And Gerard's intelligence not only outwits the intruder and saves his own life, but also helps the police in in nabbing a wanted criminal. In fact, Gerard, with his unagitated, composed manner, serves as a foil to villainous intruder who is edgy and agitated. Now, let's come to the next character of the play, that is Intruder. Now, the intruder is a criminal on the run. He is his speciality is a jewel robbery. The police is on the lookout for him, so he is looking for a safe place to hide and turns out to the cottage of Gerard. The villainous scoundrel makes an intriguing plan to dodge the police. Cold-blooded as he is, he has hatched a crafty plan to achieve his aim. His plans to kill Gerard and steal his identity. He is smart and has chosen Gerard as he realizes he is bit of a mystery. Okay, so he decides to use these facts to his advantage, and the intruder is a criminal who has been eluding the police ever since he killed a cop. He has no sense of remorse for the crime he has committed. And the intruder is a bungler. This is probably because he is edgy and agitated. He enters Gerard's cottage silently but accidentally bangs against a table. Now this alerts Gerard to his presence. He is not able to take him up by surprise, and in the end too he goes to inspect what is actually a cupboard, but which Gerard claims is the garage and is trapped. So the intruder copies the American way of speaking, put those paws up, and amused Gerard asks him, "Are you American? Or is that merely a clever imitation?" Now this shows he either watches a lot of Hollywood films or read crime novels. Now let's start with the play. Now the play is set in a small cottage. The room has an entrance on the right hand side with a curtain on it. There is another door to the left side of the room which is in use. The room has simple furniture, a small table to the left, a chair or two, and a small bed on the right side of the room. So on the table a telephone is kept. As the curtain on the stage is rolled up, Gerard is found standing by the table making a phone call. He is of medium height and is wearing spectacles that are in shape of horns. He is wearing a lounge suit and a great coat. His voice indicates that he is cultured and well educated. If you remember, we discussed in the character sketch of Gerard. So now Gerard is speaking on the phone. He says that the person should call him up directly. He adds that he would reach in 10 minutes, bids goodbye, and puts the receiver back on the phone. Then he goes to the divan and starts packing the stuff in a traveling bag. While he is busy packing, another man who is similar to Gerard enters the room silently from the right side. He has gun in one hand. He is dressed in a bright colored dress and overcoat and a soft hat. He bumps into the table and Gerard turns around at the sound. Now let's see further what happens. Gerard speaks pleasantly to the stranger and says that he is surprised to see him. Now here intruder means a person who intrudes especially into a building with a criminal intent. And pause here stands for hands. So now the intruder says that he is glad to find Gerard, happy to see him. He adds that Gerard won't remain happy when he comes to know of his intentions. The intruder asks Gerard to raise his hands. Okay, now let's see what happens further. Now Gerard finds the intruder's behavior to be dramatic and not very natural. Now the intruder says that he is trying to be composed and he is short of words to complete the sentence. And Gerard adds that he wants to say that he is trying to be calm and that is not to show anxiety or enthusiasm. Now the intruder thanks Gerard for completing the sentence and says that soon he will stop acting smart. He adds that he will torture him and make him crawl. Now this is how the intruder is threatening Gerard. Now Gerard says that the intruder could ask him anything, but before that he wanted to sit comfortably. Now let's see further. The intruder commands Gerard to sit on the chair and sits on the divan. Now he wants to talk about the two of them. Now Gerard says that finally he has a person who is concerned about him and he wants to know about his past. He adds that he would tell him about his life. How as a child he was stolen by a group of nomads and why at the age of 32 years was he living all alone at this small cottage in Essex. By saying this, he developed an air of suspense around him. Now you can see how cleverly Gerard is acting. Now, the intruder was not intrigued by Gerard's words. He wanted answers to his set of questions and did not want to hear to what Gerard had to say. He asked if Gerard lived there alone. Now Gerard says that the way in which the intruder spoke made him feel that he was telling him that he lived alone rather than asking him if he did live alone. Now he added that the intruder's voice was not familiar to imply that he wanted to know about him. Rather, it shows that he already knows about him. Now, the intruder repeated his question with emphasis and asked Gerard if he lived there alone. Now Gerard asked, what would the intruder do if he did not answer his question? Now the intruder warned Gerard that if he did not want any harm, then he should obey his orders. Now Gerard spoke intelligently and replied that his good sense reflected in his ability to avoid pain than the mere desire to avoid it. Now he asked the intruder about his opinion and addressed him as Mr. Eyre to indicate that he wanted to know his name. Now, the intruder replied that he did not know his name and on the other hand asked Gerard his Christian name, that is the name he was given when he was baptized in the church. Now, Gerard replied that the Christian name was Vincent Charles. Now, the intruder's next question was if Gerard had a car. Gerard replied negatively, said no. Now, the intruder said that Gerard was lying. He said that he was not foolish. He was smarter than him and knew that he had a car. He warned Gerard not to befool him. Now Gerard asked the intruder if he was really an American or was he copying American accent. Now you can see how cool Gerard is. He is acting in such a cool way. Now let's see. Now after listening to the intruder got angry and said that this gun was not a toy. He could harm Gerard and still would get a reply to his questions. Now Gerard showed that he got scared and said that he would be happy to help the intruder. He accepted that he had a car and said that it was in the garage. Now then the intruder asked whether the place was frequented by many people. Now Gerard replied that he rarely had any visitors. He added that very few people underwent the trouble of visiting him, and other than the baker, greengrocer, and the milkman, no one else bothered to visit him. Now, the intruder said that he had come to know that Gerard did not meet tradespeople. Now, Gerard commented that the intruder had gone through a lot of trouble to gain information about him. Now, he added that as the intruder knew a lot about him, he should disclose some details about himself too. He added that the intruder had been reserved and had not talked much about himself. Now, see how Gerard is trapping the intruder. Now, the intruder said that he had a lot to talk about himself. In case Gerard thought himself to be smart, he was smarter. He had brains and used his intelligence to achieve things. And Gerard commented that the man had just broken into his small cottage, which was not a big deal and did not require much intelligence. And then the intruder said that the reason for his entering Gerard's cotton would shock Gerard. Now Gerard replied to this that by seeing the intruder's behavior, he knew that his reason of entering his house would be shocking. Then he inquired about the crime that the intruder specialized in. And the intruder replied that he specialized in jewel robbing, and he added that Gerard's car would be a gift for him because it was very stylish. Now Gerard commented that in Essex, jewels were hardly found, and he wanted to say that it was futile for the intruder to visit the area as he would not find any jewels there. Now the intruder added that just like jewels, crops were also scarce in Essex, and so he could live there peacefully. Now Gerard asked if the intruder wanted to live with him. So he commented that the decision was sudden and that he had not invited the intruder to live with him. So the intruder replied that he did not take the trouble to ask permission from Gerard because he won't be there for long. Now Gerard asked that what did he mean by that? Now the intruder replied that the surprise was that he intended to kill Gerard. Now Gerard said that the man sounded harsh. The intruder replied sarcastically that he would be sorry to do that because he had developed a liking for him. This was all very sarcasm. With heavy sarcasm he said so. Now Gerard said that killing a person was a serious crime and advised the intruder not to do so. Now the intruder said that he was being chased by the police as he had already murdered a person. If he would kill another one, the punishment would still remain the same as they could not hang him to that twice. Now Gerard said it meant that the intruder was planning to murder him without any reason. Now he agreed that the intruder would not lose anything, but asked him that what would he get by killing him. He wanted to know the reason for him to kill Gerard. And now the intruder replied that in return for killing Gerard, he would get freedom as he had committed a murder. He was hunted by the police and was hiding like a rat. So, upon stealing the identity of Vincent Charles Gerard, he would live a life of freedom. He could go to places, eat and sleep without a fear of being caught by the police. Now Gerard commented that in many dramatic plays, the villain was showed to be a foolish person. He would delay being killed and eventually got frustrated due to the delay. Then he would commit some foolish act and get trapped. But the intruder was luckier than such villains. Now, The intruder replied that he was fine because he was doing this for a reason. He wanted to live on the stolen identity of Vincent Charles Gerard. He enacted Gerard's style of speaking, which he had learned when he had overheard Gerard talking on the phone. Now, the intruder mimed Gerard and asked how was his performance. Now, Gerard commented that the acting was not very attractive. The intruder commented that it wasn't so because Gerard's behavior was such. He added that he only required spectacles and he would look just like Gerard. Now, Gerard asked the intruder that what would he do about his clothes. His dress sense was not like him and could put him in trouble. The intruder replied that this was not a problem as he would wear Gerard's clothes. They would fit him well. So now, Gerard said that the intruder did not understand his remark when he said that the intruder was luckier than most melodramatic villains. He added that he was not praising the intruder's intelligence, but he wanted to say that the intruder would not kill him until he had a major reason to do so. Then the intruder commented that that was what Gerard thought. Now, Gerard said that the intruder would leave him alive. He thanked God that the man had not shot at him till that moment. The intruder ordered Gerard to be quick and disclose all that was going in his mind. And he was getting bored by the lengthy conversation. So, now, Gerard said that the intruder's plan was to escape the police by killing Gerard and stealing his identity. The intruder confirmed his plan. Now, Gerard asked the intruder that was he sure that this plan would help him escape the police. Now, the intruder said that he had planned everything. He did a job in the town, something went wrong, and he murdered a policeman. Now, since that day, he was on the run. Now, Gerard said that finally the intruder had reached his cottage while running from the police. Now, Gerard commented that in many dramatic plays, the villain has showed to be a foolish person. He would delay being killed and eventually got frustrated due to the delay. Then he would commit some foolish act and get trapped but the intruder was luckier than such villains. The intruder replied that he was fine because he was doing this for a reason. He wanted to live on the stolen identity of Vincent Charles Gerard. He enacted Gerard's style of speaking, which he had learned when he overheard Gerard while talking on the phone. The intruder mimed Gerard and asked how his performance was. So now Gerard said that the intruder's plan was to escape the police by killing Gerard and stealing his identity. The intruder confirmed the plan. Okay, so now the intruder said that he had planned everything. Okay. Now, the intruder said that while he was on the run, he reached a town called Aylesbury. There he saw Gerard and overheard two men discussing him. Now, their discussion revealed that Gerard was strange and mysterious. Now, Gerard added that he could explain the mystery that surrounded him. Now, the intruder overlooked Gerard's request and continued his speech. He said that the Gerard would order things over the phone, would go away and return suddenly. He also wanted to do such things. Getting to know of Gerard was the luckiest happening for him. Now, Gerard commented that it was not intelligent to guess that why was he surrounded by this air of mystery. The intruder prepared to shoot at Gerard as he was getting bored by the conversation. Now, Gerard warned the intruder not to act foolishly. If he shot at him, he would be hanged to death. He added that even if he stole Gerard's identity, he would be hanged to death. The intruder got curious upon hearing this. Now, Gerard said that this was the big surprise for the intruder. The reason behind Gerard being a secretive man, his not have visitors and his activities being suitable for the intruder was that he was also a wrong man. Gerard portrayed himself to be a wrong man. He was not an honest man like a school teacher. Now his game got over when he had to kill someone with a gun. After that, one of his accomplices got caught by the police. They got evidence against Gerard for him. And that particular night, Gerard was expecting that the police could raid his house to catch him, and so he had packed his bag and was ready to escape. And the intruder had to clue to all this. He agreed that Gerard had a bag and a gun, but why was he carrying odd stuff like artificial mustaches, wigs, and props? So Gerard replied that he was carrying these props so that he could change his appearance in order to hide himself. He hoped that the intruder would believe him. The intruder was still doubtful about Gerard's words. Now Gerard requested the intruder to believe his words and accompany him in his car. He added that the intruder could help him escape, and if he felt that Gerard's words were false, he could kill him with his gun. Now the intruder believed Gerard and said that probably he was right. So Gerard was in a hurry. He picked up his hat and bag. The intruder warned Gerard that he was watching his moves. Now Gerard said that one of his accomplices had been positioned on the road to warn him if he saw the police. Now just then the telephone bell rang and Gerard said that it was the time to leave. He directed the intruder to leave through the garage door. The intruder doubted Gerard's words. And then Gerard said that the intruder should not be foolish. He asked him to see for himself. He opened the door and stepped to one side so that the intruder could see outside. The intruder leaned forward with the gun still pointed towards Gerard. As he turned his head, Gerard pushed him into the cupboard and the gun fell off the intruder's hand. The door was not of the garage, but it was a cupboard door. So as Gerard pushed the intruder inside the cupboard, he closed the door and locked it quickly. And he picked up the revolver and walked towards the phone. The gun pointed towards the cupboard in case the intruder tried to escape. Now the intruder rattled the door of the cupboard and shouted to be free. And then Gerard answered the phone and said that he would not be able to deliver the props in time for the rehearsal of the play because he had been troubled by someone. He added that he would add this incident to his next play, and this shows that Gerard was a playwright, and he asked the person to send a sergeant to his residence, to send a police to his residence. He added that probably the police could be found in a public bar. So that was all for the lesson, children. Hope all of you will be able to understand it, and you will understand if we are cool, relaxed, and with presence of mind, we can solve any problem of our life. So thank you, children. Have a great day ahead.